Breaking news, guys, and is this a surprise? I'm not sure, but George has now been removed from the Big Brother house. I was concerned this would happen, but I really hoped it wouldn't happen for a little while. Let's have a look at what's been said. From ITV, they said, George will appear in tonight's episode of Big Brother, but his comments will not be aired as they are contrary to broadcast standards. Notice they didn't say broadcasting guidelines. George was previously given several warnings for unacceptable language. Most were not broadcast as the language used was contrary to broadcast standards. But one was seen during Monday's episode of Big Brother. Before entering the Big Brother house, the rules regarding language and behaviour are explained to all housemates, and they receive training in respect, dignity and inclusion. Friday's eviction will continue as planned, details of which will be explained during tonight's episode of Big Brother Late and Live. And they've confirmed this further with the vote closed sign here, which says George has left the Big Brother house, so the vote has been closed. Your previous votes won't count, but a new vote with Cameron B, Elsa and Richard will open tomorrow, and you will get 5 more votes. Now look, I know George was a polarising figure, okay, and I know a lot of people didn't like him. But my problem is that when people like this go, programmes that are reality-based tend to lose a lot of their narrative drive, because there's no more villain, right? You've got George gone. Caroline, who played the villain card last night, she'll probably be gone soon. So it becomes rather tedious. And the thing is that also, you just have a people with the same opinions. So there's no point of difference, right? So the only thing that George brought to the house that, you know, I thought was interesting in my view was the fact that his opinions were the polar opposite to everyone else's opinions, and they could talk it out, right? Now I know George was stubborn and silly with his opinions, but some people are. The thing is that what did he say that got him kicked out? Because as I said just then, I said, you know, they've said he said things contrary to broadcast standards, but not guidelines. You know, every broadcaster has standards, right? Although some of the shows you watch on ITV, you do wonder if they have standards. My point is that guidelines are different to standards. Did he say something that was so abhorrent that it broke the broadcasting guidelines, which would therefore make it unbroadcastable, or did he just breach a standard that they've set? Because if we go by last night's episode, I think what Caroline said to Zila and then to Nancy was pretty bad. But I don't think it broke broadcasting guidelines, but it may have broken their standards. Did George say something worse than that? I mean, the idea that Caroline would say what she said to Zila to his face so blatantly and then dig herself into a deeper hole, I found remarkable. Because whether you think someone being trans is good or bad, whether you think someone being pansexual is good or bad, I still think there's an element of politeness. And that we have to remember that regardless of what we think of the way people live their lives and the way people do things, they're still human beings. They shouldn't be bullied, they shouldn't be belittled, made to feel inferior and small, simply because we don't agree with the choice they've taken for their lifestyle. So I thought it was kind of rude and awful, and I'm surprised she didn't get kicked out for that. So I don't know what George did. But I think, yes, I'm not surprised. However, I was hoping this wouldn't happen for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So he could stay in there and just have a few more conversations. I wanted to know, because, you know, you've got to remember, guys, that George's views, right, are held by a lot of people in this country. You know, George is clearly someone who probably votes Reform. He clearly likes Nigel Farage. He probably likes Andrew Tate. And there are a lot of people in this country who also follow that same pattern. So I think if we are not careful, what will happen is George will come out of the Big Brother house. He'll probably go on a whole press junket about what he was told to leave for, what he actually said. And then we'll have another kind of uproar about free speech and what did he say that was so bad? Why was he not allowed to say that? Why was he kicked out? And it just kicks off a whole nother passage of just like unnecessary hoo-ha when we could have just seen what he said and then decided whether he should go. Because let's be honest, if what he said that got him kicked out was so bad, the public would have kicked him out anyway. You know, I'd be really shocked if Caroline isn't up for eviction next week based on what she did last night. And whatever George said, he'd have probably been up for eviction for that as well. So I think, yes, I'm not surprised, but at the same time, I'm a little bit kind of like, ugh, it's going to be a bit more boring now. I wasn't a fan of George's, but let's also be honest. He was still approachable. He still said sorry when he did things wrong. And we've had disagreeable housemates before. Remember this time last year, guys, it was Marcello. Remember Marcello? He was being all leery with the girls and spouting opinions they didn't like, and him and Ali were locking horns. But Marcello managed to survive to the final, and I think he got some warnings as well. You know, And he also was someone who would eventually say sorry and would capitulate every now and then. So I just think, I don't know what on earth he said or what on earth he did, but maybe it was vindictive, maybe it was really unpleasant and he had to go. But I'd have preferred him to be caught in the act, for us to see what he said, and for us to then vote him out, rather than it being done this way. Let me know your thoughts below. What do you think about this? And of course I'll catch you later for another video. And let's all watch George for the last time tonight. For some of you that's going to be a rejoicing moment. You don't have to see him again. And for some of you are going to be like, it's going to be dull now. There we go. Enjoy it.